Welcome to your Daily 5 for Thursday, June 1st, 2023. I meant to do this 5. I've been meaning to do this 5 since the Sony PlayStation Showcase or whatever they called it. I don't know if they had a specific name for it. But anyway, Sony recently did a slightly longer than an hour showcase of upcoming games. And there's been a lot of mixed reviews to it. I'm not going to go through the entire thing. But most people were most impressed by the last game. I believe it was the last game shown, which was Marvel's Spider-Man 2. And I can certainly understand why, because it's a beautiful looking game, and it looks like now you get to use the black suit symbiote, which is awesome. But honestly, the game that really interested me most from that entire showcase was Assassin's Creed Mirage, because it really looks like, if you haven't watched the trailer, I'm going to link to it in the show notes, of course, but that game looks the closest to the original Assassin's Creed that game series has looked in an awfully long time. I mean, easily since the Ezio stuff, which was still similar, but, Ezio, and I love the Ezio series. I love it. It's my favorite games in the series so far. But they were definitely a shift in a certain way away from what AC1 was. Which, was at the time a great thing, because AC1, to be honest, was a bit of it was a little bit of a bare bones game, but it was certainly a fascinating one. It felt like something different and new and interesting. And the series evolved, and for many people, it evolved too far from the original formula, to the point where Odyssey and Valhalla were these huge, bloated, sprawling games, neither of which I've had any I played Odyssey for about an hour, and I gave up, because it was just such an empty, nothing world, and I just knew it was going to be a lot of just moving around empty spaces, and who cares, and I just had no interest. But this, I had read something or heard something that says it's supposed to be a much more dialed in experience, so around 20 to 30 hours, a more linear world, so not as, I think there's still going to be exploration, I'm pretty sure, kind of like the first AC1 was a directed / open world type of thing, where once you got into the city, you were free to do whatever you wanted, but you were limited to where you could go. So I imagine just everything looking at this thing is very much echoing the first game. And I think that's obviously intentional, not only in terms of the looks, but also it looks like the design. Because there's much of what you see in the action is stealth oriented or stealth adjacent. There's one scene where he's fighting multiple guards, but almost all the other ones, even some of the ones that look like he's fighting guards, actually could be silent takedowns or, stealth takedowns, and they just look like they're actual combat. But there is one where he's fighting multiple people, which was, that was one of the weaknesses of the original AC1 and for a while you'd literally just hit a button to counter. So I think they'll probably have that a little bit better, but I gotta tell you, this looks really good. It looks really good, and I still, and maybe they will, we don't know yet because the game's not out. I do want to see the return of some of the more science fictional elements, but honestly, if it's between capturing that stealth feel that the first game was aiming for, or the science fiction elements, they're better off starting with the stealth elements, which is what they appear to be focusing on. Again, there is such a persistent reminder and feeling in this trailer of the first game that I have to imagine that this is their refocusing of the IP. I think there's going to be now like a split to the series. I'm pretty sure they had said something about splitting them off into different types of paths. So hopefully this means it's going to go back, because a lot of this stuff, you look at this, a lot of the escapes and the diversions and the sneaking around and kind of following people, that all feels like the older Assassin's Creed stuff, the things that many people really fell in love with, and then for a while seemed like the series was maybe losing a sense of. So I don't know. Obviously, this is just a trailer, but it did show off a lot of gameplay that looked like the older games. It certainly feels like they're trying to evoke the original game, not only in the presentation, but also in the mechanics of the game. And for people like me who missed that first game in terms of what it was capturing in the way that the stealth mechanics worked, I'm really excited to see this. It may be nothing like this. I hope not, because that's a bait and switch that will really, really, I think, turn off a lot of the community. But this may be. It's possible. I know it's Ubisoft, but it is possible that they actually looked at what people missed about the old games, realized that maybe people weren't responding to these newer games as much because they were a little too bloated and too far afield from where the series started, and they're starting to try to move it back. I don't know. We'll have to wait till it comes out, but I gotta tell you, that was the best trailer I saw in that entire showcase. Later.